Last week we were talking about how there was a 5-year gap, a 5-year time period between Oden's return to Wano and his death, his execution. And so now, thanks to this chapter, that 5-year gap is gone. And it turns out that those 5 years were dedicated to Oden losing the respect and trust of his people. Reading this chapter was kind of like watching Titanic, because even though you know that the ship is going to crash and sink, you kind of don't want it to happen. So you're just reading this going like, We start off with Gotti being kicked away by that one Marine dude. And I still think like the group of Marines that took away Chiffon could turn out to be CP0 agents because of the way they're dressed. They're dressed very sophisticatedly. I mean, in fact, that guy kicking away Gotti reminds me of Dofi a little bit. So now somebody else is going to have to rescue Chiffon. Which reminds me, what happened to Pound? Do you remember Pound? Is he alive? Last time we saw him, wasn't he about to get his head cut off? Like we left off last week, Oden is about to attack Orochi. Unfortunately, though, before he can land his attack, we see this transparent dome activate surrounding Orochi to protect him from the attack, thanks to the powers of the barrier fruit.
And of course, we know that that devil fruit power currently belongs to Bartolomeo. So the old Kurozumi man who's using it is currently dead. Same thing with the old witch. And of course, that old man was actually shown in chapter 965 along with the old woman. I like how the slash of Odin's attack doesn't disappear. Like it just travels along the barrier and just kind of like, gets redirected and ends up destroying a side of the room. It's revealed that the old man's name is Semimaru, who I found out was actually a famous blind Japanese musician that played the biwa, which is the instrument that he has in the chapter. He also looks blind because, his eyes are always closed. Now, one of the most famous pieces of art featuring Semimaru is a work called The Moon's Four Strings. And I read that the meaning behind the artwork is actually kind of sad and happy at the same time because since Semimaru is blind, he cannot witness the beauty of the full moon, but he also still has the beauty of the sound of the music that he creates with his instrument. So again, it's bittersweet. Now, the word semi, the beginning of the man's name, in Japanese means cicada, which is a type of insect. And higurashi, which is the old witch's name, is also a species of cicada. It's called, higurashi means evening cicada. So I wonder if the two of them are siblings or something. And then higurashi in Japanese is also a homophone, which can also mean nightfall. So both of their names, it's interesting, both of their names kind of have like a double meaning.
Now, if Semimaru is actually blind, then I'm pretty sure that he has to have some type of observation haki like Fujitora does, where he can see like the silhouettes of people, because otherwise how would he time the barrier, right? He has to be able to see Oden coming so that he can activate the barrier at the right time. So yeah, I think he should have observation.
And we get a reminder of how people of Wano refer to devil fruit powers differently than people from the outside. Like Kinemon and Kanjiro at one point have also used the term sorcery. Like they say, this is my sorcery, my devil fruit power.
And there's a theme repeated in this first part of the chapter, both by Semimaru and Orochi, who essentially tell Oden, like, if this problem could be solved with strength alone, like, we wouldn't be here. Like, it's something that you can't change, you can't fix it just using brute force.
And this is kind of why I would like Usopp to be the one to fight Orochi, because Orochi is a trickster and he's a liar and he's a coward. So I think Usopp's character would serve as a contrast to him, because, Usopp's a liar and a trickster too, but he's actually a good person. So it'd be kind of like Usopp giving Orochi a taste of his own medicine, and then hopefully Orochi dies or something. Like maybe Usopp can like trick Orochi off a cliff.
Now at first I thought that Orochi was actually threatening Oden with killing his dad, because I thought that maybe Sukiyaki was still alive. Maybe Orochi had kept Oden's father alive to threaten Oden, to say something like, if you do anything against us, we'll kill your dad. But it turns out that Sukiyaki is dead, because in the official translation, Orochi says that there's no way that anybody can know what the real Sukiyaki was thinking. So yeah, he's pretty much dead, but he still threatens Oden, and there's a deal that is made, behind the scenes here. And I think it's pretty obvious that the deal involves the people of Wano not getting hurt, because there's two people in the crowd that get shot with poison arrows,
and they start spitting out blood, and then eventually like they become blind. I wonder if like Queen or Batman had something to do with those arrows. Queen because of the poison, and Batman because he uses a bow and arrow.
So here's an idea that I had. Since we know that that poison causes blindness, like I just had this idea. What if Sanji fights Queen and it turns out that Queen was actually the person who developed that poison, and then he hits Sanji with it. Sanji begins to go blind during the fight. He actually goes blind during the fight. And because we know that Sanji specializes in observation, what if Sanji develops the same type of observation haki that Fujitora has, where he can see those silhouettes? I think that would be a great power-up for Sanji in this arc during his fight. Because Usopp kind of has like the same thing, but his is more like distance-based since he's a sniper. And then Luffy obviously has future sight. So I think this type of observation haki for Sanji would be awesome.
And then Chopper could develop an antidote for Sanji's blindness and cure him. We finally see Kaido there hovering above the castle, just kind of setting the mood, like bringing in like some thundercloud there to just darken everything. And so we see Shinobu there doing her ninja thing, as we've seen her do before with Nami. So she overhears the conversation, and obviously, like the only reason that scene is even there is so that Oda can use Shinobu later in the present and have her explain what was going on behind the scenes. She's the one who's going to tell people the real reason for why Oden was acting so strangely. You know, the deal that was made or the blackmail that was going on.
Now later on in the chapter, we actually get a hint about what the deal was about, because Oden talks to Orochi when Orochi gets to Kuri. And there's that scene where like Orochi's putting his foot on Oden's face, and Oden asks Orochi, hey, what about the ships, you know, with Kaido? So to me, even though I'm pretty sure that like people not getting hurt was part of the deal, I happen to think that because Oden's goal was ultimately to open up the borders of Wano, I think that the deal was this. I think that Oden asked Orochi to make ships so that people could travel in and out of Wano, but he also asked Orochi for Kaido's help, because you know how the entrance of Wano has really bad weather and there's like whirlpools all over the place, and if you take the wrong one, your ship gets destroyed. I feel like what Oden would have wanted in that situation was for somebody to deactivate the bad weather and the whirlpools, you know, at the border of Wano so that people could sail in and out without having to worry about the bad weather and their ship getting destroyed. So maybe he asked for the ships to make those trips, but then also for Kaido's help, because you know how like Kaido can create like, you know, storms when he shows up in dragon form. Like maybe he also has the power to like, you know, change the weather around that part at the border.
Oden receives a newspaper with the details of Roger's execution and the start of a new age of pirates. And I definitely think that Oden's reaction to Roger's death is supposed to be a callback, a reference to something that Rayleigh said back in Sabaody. He basically told the Straw Hats that even though he did not attend Roger's public execution, he's never laughed as much nor cried as much as he did the night that Roger died. So it's very fitting for Oden to have the same reaction as Rayleigh. And I think it's important to remember that Roger's speech is essentially what inspires Moria to go to Wano in the first place. Because Moria, if you remember, Moria is there at Roger's execution, along with Buggy and Shanks and Mihawk and Crocodile. Dragon and Dofi are there as well. So a bunch of pirates that go on to make names for themselves witness Roger's final speech. Now, just for comparison's sake, this is a picture of Moria before facing Kaido, and this is a picture of Moria after facing Kaido. Notice the giant vertical scar across his neck. That's how bad Kaido messed him up. And of course we knew that, you know, Kaido killed his crew. What I like about Moria, though, is that even though he took that massive L, he's still pretty confident in his ability. Like, I remember back in Thriller Bark when Kuma shows up and tells him that the government is kind of concerned, kind of worried that Luffy will defeat another warlord. And so Kuma offers Moria some help, and Moria gets triggered at the offer. Like, he's like,
"Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I challenged Kaido! Heme!"
Now, according to Kinemon, once Ryuma's sword was stolen, and once the grave was defiled, that had the effect of dropping Wano's morale tremendously, as if it needed to get any lower. But even then, Oden just kept dancing, losing the support and respect of his people, which, I mean, we kind of knew that there had to be a coup at some point, and that's the first thing that needs to happen. Like, in order for somebody to get overthrown, you need to lose the support of the people, which is what this chapter is doing. He still has friends, though. He's still friends with Hyogoro, who, by the way, I feel terrible for because he lost his wife and 16 people, and then later on he gets thrown in prison only to be fed a dumpling once a day. And I like how despite everything, Oden still has Toki's support. Like, Toki is ride or die, it's like, that's the kind of wife that you want to have, the wife that knows that you're dancing naked in the streets, but still has your back when you come home. I mean, I guess the only question is, why didn't Oden seek out Whitebeard's help, especially with Izo being part of Whitebeard's crew? Because look, remember what Whitebeard did to Marineford because of Ace, and technically, Oden had the same position in Whitebeard's crew as Ace. But I guess the reasoning for Oden not seeking help from Whitebeard is similar to his reasoning for why he didn't want the Roger Pirates' help. He basically said, no, this is a Kazuki matter. I want to be the one to take care of this because this is an inherited problem that my country is facing. So I want to be the one to fix it. Also, plot purposes. And then, of course, Oden still has the support of people like Yasui and the 9 Red Scabbards. Now, we get this shot of Orochi arriving in Kuri, and if you look around him, you can see that there's members of the Oniwa Banchu with him, so he's already recruited them. But what's even more interesting to me is that the thing that gets Oden to snap out of it, the thing that triggers Oden to fight back, is the revelation of what happened to Hyogoro's people. That to me is more important because it kind of sets the stage for okay, so maybe the Blackmail did have something to do with protecting the citizens of Wano, Because if that's the thing that gets him to just say okay, enough is enough, then yeah, maybe he was doing it to protect his people. That being said, though, the whole blackmail, the whole trickery of it, I think is going to have to play a role in the next chapter in Oden's defeat. Because, if you remember, one of the things that we talked about or that I questioned was, how did Oden even get defeated? Because he's a pretty strong dude, right? So it's kind of whoa, what needs to happen in order for Oden to be in a position of getting executed? And I know that Kaido is a monster, but because of everything that we've seen in this chapter, it kind of gets me to think that Oden is being set up to be either tricked or blackmailed into defeat. Oden finally reaches his limit. He's like, I've had enough of dancing naked in the streets for this ass clown. Let's go get them. The Scabbards are overjoyed to hear this. They're like, why didn't you say this 5 years ago? We would have helped you then. So they gear up and they march their way to the capital in this epic final shot.
Now, the way the shot is framed is an obvious reminder of those famous straw hat walks that we've seen throughout the series. They're usually pretty rare, but Oda uses them to get you hyped. The first one was in Arlong Park. There's another one in Water 7 towards the Frankie house. Another one in Enius Lobby, which is my favorite. One in Fishman Island at the plaza. And another one in Strong World towards Shiki's lair. And I think there was another one that was similar to this one with the Scabbards. I think it's chapter 955, where everybody's preparing for the final battle. And it's one of those panels where you can hear the epic music build in the back of your mind as you read. Now, this scene is obviously taking place 20 years ago, right? And so I've done the math, and the fact is that by having Denjiro there as part of the 9, it pretty much makes it very unlikely that Denjiro can be Zoro's master, Koshiro. And this is because Kuina, Koshiro's daughter, Zoro's rival, was born 22 years from the current storyline. And this is happening 20 years ago. So Kuina would already be 2 at this point. And we know that Zoro's master was looking forward to having a boy instead of a girl, so that he could pass down his dojo to his son. And so that basically means that at this point in the story, Zoro's master should already have an established dojo in the East Blue. So unless Denjiro has been traveling on and off to the East Blue from Wano all these years, it's looking, it could still technically work, but it's looking very unlikely that Denjiro will turn out to be Koshiro. So with that in mind, Denjiro could still turn out to be maybe Koshiro's brother or something, Or he could turn out to be the witching hour boy.
In addition to the art, like even the narration that follows the march of the samurai is awesome. You know, it kind of explains like the origin of the name, the Nine Red Scabbards. The sun was shining red as it set upon these warriors. And it's like this, yeah, like you're getting in the heat of battle. The Nine Red Scabbards. Screw calling them, what is it, Akazaya 9? No. It's the Nine Red Scabbards. We got an explanation for where that origin comes from. It just fits them so well in this case. So the Nine Red Scabbards march into battle, and it just looked awesome. It's a poetic scene. That's pretty much going to do it for me. Overall, I thought the chapter was pretty average, especially when you compare it to the chapters that we've been getting. There's nothing wrong with the chapter. It's just like an average setup chapter. Thank you so much for watching. I'm actually scheduled to have surgery tomorrow. It's nothing major. It's just like a shoulder adjustment thing that I've been putting off for a long time. But regardless, wish me luck with that. Thanks again for everything that you do. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video. You know the drill. I won't bother you with that. Have a good week. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.